all across space. All across time. Mysteries that we can't understand.
Dude, this is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
Looking into the stories and those behind them. Welcome to UAP Insight Podcast. Hey everyone, we've got an awesome episode for you today. It's the first in-person interview that we've had on this channel. I'm speaking with Willey from Legacy Discoveries. He's just a simple man looking for the truth. He served a few years in the Navy as a gunner's mate in a coastal riverine squad. And he's been experiencing Sasquatch since age 6. He began researching when he was 12 and started his own organization just a few years ago. He's never known normal life without paranormal experiences, so embraces strange occurrences as an opportunity to understand the world as she is to her fullest, not just as she appears. So join me as we speak to Willey from Legacy Discoveries.
All right, Willey, thanks for being here. Yeah, thanks for having me. There he is. It's been, a couple of months now since we've seen each other. We got to meet at Medellin Falls, right?
Yeah, we met out at the Medellin Falls Bigfoot Festival, which they put on every year. Is that?
Yeah, we've been attending for the last 3 years. The first year I was more of a docent, so I was just kind of holding the door for people and stuff. And then, a few people all of a sudden started hearing wind of me talking just on the street to people I was holding the door open for. And then the director of Porta came up to me and told me, didn't even give me a yes or no option, just told me, you're getting a booth next year and you're going to be one of our speakers. And I'm like, well, okay, that sounds good.
So for people who aren't familiar, what is Porta?
Porta, well, as much as what I know about Porta, I can't speak for them directly, but they have been responsible for putting all of the events up for Medellin Falls and the surrounding areas and stuff. That way they can actually raise money for up north there, because the town of Medellin Falls doesn't have a whole lot of work in it. So they got to basically set up these events in order to draw people in to get revenue for them to thrive another year. So basically this event has been feeding everybody in Medellin Falls, which is why it's such a big thing for us to all be a part of, because it's keeping them alive and also keeping one of our areas that is surrounded by hot zones and stuff alive too, to where we have access to birthing, food, anything we need up there. So
Yeah, absolutely. So I came up with a little bit of a list of some topics that we want to kind of cover today. So let's kind of start at the beginning. What first got you interested in Sasquatch, Bigfoot phenomenon?
Well, that goes back to when I was about 6 years old, actually. My mom had actually seen one out at Sullivan Lake that we were all on a camping trip out there. Actually, it wasn't camping, it was a kayaking. We were just there for the day, actually. And halfway down across the lake, we were following the eastern shoreline, I believe. And she broke off from the group because she had saw somebody on the beach there, just right along the trail. And it's right at that steep cliffside right there. And so she broke off. I was probably the last kid in line and stuff, so I was in between her and the rest of the group. I kept looking back and I saw who she was looking at and everything. It's just some old guy and everything. And then she came back to the group like she saw a ghost. It was like, okay, we need to wrap it up. We need to get back closer to the vehicles. We need to probably think about going home soon. And we're like, we just got here, you know. Even as a kid, I'm sitting here, I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? You know. But on our way back, I think it was my oldest brother, Dustin, who looked up to the top of the mountain. He's like, oh, there's a hunter up there. And the whole group looked up, saw this massive dude walking up there and everything. And all of us were like, that is a big guy. That's a really big guy up there. And it was in this clearing. Because if you look at that mountainside, it's like mostly timber. And then there's a meadow right in the middle of it. He was walking across that meadow right there, and we all saw him. And my mom just started like getting really, really nervous and stuff. And then we ended up going home, and she had filed a report, was talking with somebody about something or about it, and word had gotten out that she had seen something unnatural. And then we started getting calls from the government. All of a sudden, we got a call from, I mean, it even said on the dial-up right there, it said U.S. government. And so my mom answered the phone, and apparently this gentleman had asked her about the Bigfoot she saw, and she was like, what Bigfoot? And he was like, don't be coy with me. Don't be dumb. Come on, you know what you saw. Where'd you see it? You know? She just hung up the phone and then instructed the rest of us kids, don't answer the phone to the U.S. government, because this was starting to freak out. Then we started going over to the reservation right over here. And like most of my life, I actually grew up basically right down the road from right here, and then over that mountainside right there, and then up on this side of the mountain, that side of the mountain. Dude, I've been all around this town. Like, I was raised here. And a lot of that time was over in Inchliam and stuff, and I was raised over on the res over there. And we were talking a lot with the tribal members. I was part of a drum team and stuff. So, I mean, we were very well connected with the tribe. And they kept instructing us not to talk about it. And they were like, anytime that, you know, the big hairy man came into the picture, don't talk about it. I'm like, okay. Well, eventually, I started hearing like stories trickle out and stuff. And there's some stories I'm not allowed to talk about, unless it's with another tribal member. But from what my understanding is that they call them the Sasket, and the Sasket translates in Salish to hairy man and stuff. And I'm Lakota too, so I'm also Plains Indian, but I was raised by the Salish tribe here in Colville. And so the Lakota actually call him Shiatonka. And Shiatonka is actually older brother. Nothing to do with hair, he just says older brother. And so putting all this together and everything, I'm like, okay, so, you know, obviously they're out there and stuff, so there was never really a question to me. It's never been a question to the tribe. But it wasn't until I was 12 years old, and I had my buddy Bryce from in town. He was staying with me over out on Scott Road out here on the other side of Orrin Rice right here. And I had this huge mountain for my backyard and everything. It was all state land, so it was just a child's dream to free roam and stuff. And we'd gone out one morning to go grouse hunting, and it got very personal right there because of how close it was to us when we rounded the corner. We were on this old logging trail that hooked around this little hillside. The hillside's completely covered in really thick timber and bushes and lodgepole sapling, and the right side's been completely clear cut. And there's a couple of brush piles that were stacked up there and everything. And we rounded that corner. There was a single tree in the middle of the clear cut there. And I'm looking at this tree, and it's got this black figure standing behind it. And all you'd see is from the shoulder down to the hip, side of the knee, and basically that was it. But it was standing, and it was pure black and stuff, and we both froze, and I nudged him, or he nudged me. Sorry, I'm shaking. It's fucking cold. Sorry, we'll bleep that out. Whoopsie.
We're not too worried about language on.
All right, cool. Your game. But basically, he nudged me or I nudged him, and we both locked onto this thing, and we were staring, and I told him, I was like, if it goes down on all fours, just make as much noise as possible, because the amount of bear that we have around here is a lot. And so I'm like waiting for it to move, and it's just standing there, just frozen solid like we are. And it was either me or Bryce went up to the next brush pile so that we could get this V pattern on it, and there's nowhere for it to go, like, without breaking our field of view. And we stayed there for like 15 minutes or so, waiting for this thing to step out, and it never did. And so I motioned to him, I'm like, do you see it? He was like, I don't see anything. And I'm like, hey, let's push up then. Let's see if we can get it to run somewhere. And so we started pushing up, and we come around the other side of the tree, and we were facing each other at this point. The only thing that was in between us was a pile of scat, like this big and like that deep. And it was just logs, like that big around. Just massive, massive logs. Like this poor guy needed latex, or not latex, but, a laxative or something. Like, holy crap. And we were just staring at it. I mean, we'd both already seen bear. We'd both already seen the scat from bear. This looked like human and everything. And I looked at him. I was like, "Did you see it go anywhere?" And he was like, "No, I didn't. I don't know where it went and stuff. There's no way for it to move to the tree line without us seeing it at all. And this thing just into thin air, just vanished." And so that's what honestly got me into it. And I was going to school right here, actually. And I started diving into the library looking for any books on Bigfoot or anything like that. And I started finding them in the science fiction classification. I got to stand up. I'm chilly. You're good. But I started finding them in the science fiction classification. And it was all of these research books from like Dr. Meldrum, and there was one that was fictional that was called Sasquatch, but it was like everything I had read out of that book seemed to be somehow accurate on everything that I've learned up to date now. And everything, I still have that book and stuff. I went out, I found it again, and I bought it just so that I could compare what is written in that book. And I think the author of that book was on to something. And so I started diving into reasons why they are not recognized and stuff as a social thing, or, like, everybody sees them nowadays as one of three things: monster, monkey, myths and stuff. And it seems like that's been more of the agenda, of the hidden agenda, in order to keep us from knowing anything about them, really. And it makes it really easy for us to sweep them right under the rug too, and continue exploiting the forests around us, right? Because if we were to learn that there are people in those woods, that messes up everything when it comes to society's progress of industry, making money, all of that. Everything is dictated by money. And that's the ultimate thing that I came up with in all this research was finding out that everything is governed by money. Everything is silently dictated. Every mouth has a price, basically. And then I started learning, well, in the early times when they were pulling DNA and stuff like that, they were coming up with hybrid human of some sorts and everything, but it was human DNA that they were finding with something else in the midst of it. Nowadays, all you hear is, "Oh, we found some DNA that's got chimp in it. We got some southern Himalayan silverback or something like that." They keep coming up with all these different monkeys that they think look like them in order for us to connect the dots more easier. That way, if we're going to believe in them, we're only going to believe them to be monkey, monster, or myth and everything. And that's how basically everything has been on the social networking and, televised, programming and stuff like that. And what do you call that? I mean, it's programming. It's programming you to think a certain way, right? So I jumped into rabbit hole after rabbit hole, and it started showing me basically the flaws of the man in general. And what I come up with was self-righteousness, greed, and arrogance are the basically unholy trinity of the human, way of thinking, way of life and stuff, because everything comes down to, in society, everything comes down to control and stuff. If you don't have control, then you're putting yourself in a spot to be subjected to others' control, and nobody wants to be told what to do and stuff. So there we are, looking to be in control of our own lives with things that are completely out of our control, but yet how do you obtain that? By dividing, conquering, and rewriting history, getting people to think a certain way, act a certain way, and only abide by the rules that you set and think the way that you think or want them to think and stuff, and know the things that only you allow them to know. We have the Dark Ages, for instance, to thank for that. So much of our history has been erased completely out of the Dark Ages, and we're left to wonder what has been erased. And there are certain clues that have been left for us, breadcrumbs, if you will, for us to pick up and learn that there was so much more to this world than what meets the eye directly. I mean, for instance, the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo. This is a building that's not only predating the Dark Ages, but part of the Roman Church, which made it a personal mission to collect all information and store it, right? In the Sistine Chapel, they had Michelangelo paint the story of the Bible, for instance. And Michelangelo actually had to be institutionalized due to his mental health from that project specifically, because he was such a devout man in his faith that he believed one misbrush stroke ruins the whole picture. So one misstroke, he would be telling the depiction of the Bible in a different way than what the Bible actually says. So he went mad trying to do this perfect, this almost impossible job and everything. And in fact, he was a sculptor, not a painter, too. So he even said that to the Pope that hired him, like, I'm a sculptor, I don't paint. And he said, no, you're doing it anyway and stuff. So it put a lot of strain on him. He went blind in one of his eyes. and he had terrible neck problems and back problems, mostly probably because he's looking up in painting like this and then having that paint drop down into his eyes. There's lead in the paint back then, so he eventually went blind. And then on top of that, he painted the famous painting of Judgment Day. And on the Judgment Day painting, you look at the very bottom center of the Judgment Day painting, and you'll find there are Sasquatch hiding in caves in that painting. Why would a man who is so devout in his faith, who literally was going crazy because he wanted to be absolutely perfect in his paintings for the Bible, for the depiction of the Bible, why would he put something that we call mythical on there?
Yeah, that really raises a lot of questions about what has been kind of hidden from us over the last, few centuries to a few millennia. I mean, you have not only that, but, you go back, even further, you have things like Göbekli Tepe, 12,800 years old that, are a piece of human history that we've lost or has been purposely hidden, like in the case of Göbekli Tepe. That's,
I've never actually heard of him. So
Göbekli Tepe is a archaeological site in eastern Turkey.
Oh, okay.
And it dates back, to the end of the last ice age. And it was intentionally buried. There's a lot of what they call T-shaped pillars there that have depictions of different types of animals and creatures and stuff like that. And this site was intentionally buried about 10,000 years ago by the people who built it. Up to date, I think only about 5% of the site has been excavated. After that 5% was excavated, the country decided they were going to plant olive trees on top of the archaeological site in order to preserve it. But anyone who knows anything about horticulture understands that, trees grow roots.
Those roots are going to dig and break up everything and destroy everything.
Yeah, so that's another example. I mean, who knows? There may be examples of Sasquatch or Bigfoot on those T-shaped pillars that, we don't know about yet.
Well, they definitely are on the wall of Moab, the Moab cave paintings down in Utah and stuff. They're on the wall there too. And then you'll find a lot of footprints and handprints also painted on there too. Now, my team personally believes, wow, I gotta stand up again. This bench is freezing, dude. But my team actually personally believes that the footprints that people find are their signature, actually. So at Site Hotel, my house, when they first started interacting with us there and stuff, I came up with this idea and I was like, oh, I wonder if they would leave us prints on request. Like they've been exchanging with us. They've been leaving glyphs and everything. They've been hanging birdhouses up for us and stuff, literally decorating our property for us. And so I'm like, I wonder if they'll do this for me. So I filled this tote up and just with all-purpose flour, and I put my handprint in it and stuff, and I put it out on the table for them and everything. And it took them like maybe a week or two for them to finally start interacting with it. But they all put their handprints in it, but they stacked them 1 print, 2 print, 3 print, 4 print, 5 prints, all on top of each other. And it took us a while to figure that out as to what that meant and everything. But once you look on the cave painting walls and stuff, you'll sometimes find stacked handprints and everything. And so I was talking with a good friend of mine, Mel Scahan, and he's actually one of our greatest advisors and stuff. I was telling him about these handprints and these footprints that they were leaving us because we got footprints too. And one of the most detailed, if not the most detailed footprint that has ever been casted, because it was done in all-purpose flour. And what we did was, after they left it, we sprayed it down with some hairspray that hardens it up, and then we poured into it, so it saved all the detail, all the dermal ridges. There's hair still in the cast and stuff. I mean, it's nuts. But Mel was the one who brought the idea onto me that, well, if they're not putting their hands all different, places, and they're stacking them, he was like, I guarantee you that means family. And I'm like, huh, okay, that makes sense right there, because sometimes in the old days and everything, once you go and you put your handprint on the wall and everything, you go and you get married and stuff, then your wife comes and she puts her handprint right over the top of yours and stuff. And that's how it was for a lot of different tribes back in the day. It could be different for a lot of various different tribes and stuff. But that was the general knowledge of it. And so later on, maybe about 6 months down the road, my baby niece had come over, and she loves Bigfoot. She calls him Sagwatch and stuff. And she's only I think she's 5 now. But she come up and she saw my presentation up at Medellin and stuff, and so she was like, Uncle Bigfoot is super fun and everything, because he's got crazy friends, and stuff. So she come out to the house and she was like, I want to interact with them, and I'm like, okay, well, let me show you what they showed me. I put my handprint in the box, and I told her to put her handprint right inside of mine and stuff. And the next day, she'd taken off early in the morning. Her dad had took her back to Spokane and stuff, but she didn't get the chance to look in the box. But our buddy Braids had put his handprint directly over the top of ours, as the only time they've ever done it for us. But it was with that too that I brought that picture to Mel, and I'm like, they put their handprint over ours and stuff. And that was whenever he helped us connect the dots, that we had been socially accepted into the clan, basically as part of the clan. And so from then on, it's just been like, I don't even know how to describe it, honestly, other than just awesome. Like, the word to its fullest meaning, it is just awesome, because what they have to teach us and everything isn't just, flesh and blood. It's spiritual too. There's a very deep spiritual connection with them that I was trying to stay away from in the beginning. At first I wanted to be kind of the liaison between skeptics and Bigfoot, and the main thing about skeptics is that they want physical evidence. It's always got to be physical evidence. They want the body, they want the blood, they want the hair, they want the teeth, they want it all and everything in order to prove to them that they are real. There are some out there who are open-minded enough to accept whenever things get more paranormal than expected and understand it is absolutely real. My father-in-law, for example, because the whole time all of this is happening, he's sitting in the back corner. Not only is he keeping an eye on everybody, because he admitted this to me, that he's been watching everybody to make sure that we weren't the ones going out and resetting the table. I was doing the same thing, and so was Jamie, my mother-in-law, and so was my wife. We were all silently watching each other to make sure that nobody else was going out to mess with the table. And almost every night something changed about the table. And finally Mike had enough, and he was like, which one of you is tricking me? And we're like, we're not tricking you. This is actually happening and stuff. And he was like, all right, well, I want it proven to me then. And we were like, okay, well, if you want to interact with the table and stuff, go set something personal, something small, something personal out there for them and everything. Ask them what you want, personally. Don't let us know, and just see what happens. And he was like, well, by that time he'd already had a few in him, so he was tying one on. So he was a little more energetic about it. And so he was like, I don't need to be all secretive about it and stuff. Like, here, and he pulls out his keychain and he pulls this little black cross off of his keychain. He was like, he slaps this down on the table and he was like, this is the last item that my dad has given me. And he was like, if you guys are actually out there and you're actually listening to me, challenge accepted, take it, move it, do something with it. But that is what it's going to take to prove to me that you guys are real and stuff. And he sits down and everything. And I was like, dude, that's a little too personal. That's the last item you have from your dad and everything. And my wife was saying the same thing. Like, I don't want to see the last item from Grandpa go and everything. And he was like, well, it's mine to give. It's mine to lose too and stuff. And he was like, just prove it. And so he goes outside and he puts it in the little gifting bowl. We use a abalone shell about this big. It's about 7 inches by 9 inches or so. And it's usually used in smudging and prayer and stuff. So anything that enters the bowl is blessed before it is gifted, basically. And so he goes out, he puts the cross in the bowl and everything. And my wife and I kind of spent our night kind of silently praying to ourselves that they wouldn't take it, that they wouldn't disturb it or anything like that. But the next morning, once we got up, the cross had been taken along with other items too. I wish I had my books on me right now. I'd pull it out to tell you everything, every last detail. But unfortunately, I don't have my books on me. But they took some other items too. And all day I was at work, my wife was at work, we were just sitting there kind of, trying our best mind speak, I guess, like if you want to call it that, but just like kind of pleading to ourselves in our head, please bring it back, just bring it back. And once we got home, they brought it back and stuff. So we arrived home from work and there was the cross sitting back in the bowl, this time in the bowl that they used to gift items, not in the bowl that we used to gift items. They brought their own shell, actually, and they copied what we were doing. So they placed that cross in their little shell, but they had also braided 3 flowers into circles that big. So 3 of them, okay? Then they sprinkled tobacco over the top of it too. And that to me immediately is identified as a blessing right there, because tobacco is used traditionally in trade as a blessing, as an offering, as a gift. I mean, anytime that you would go to speak with Creator, you would bring tobacco, you would smoke and stuff. That way there are no lies between you and stuff. So not only did they bring tobacco, but braiding the 3 flowers and stuff. The cross also represents the Holy Trinity, Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, right? You got 3 braided flowers right there. And every one of us, the first thought that we all had in our heads, the second that we saw those flowers, was the crown of thorns. And when I stated that, when I said that, to me, it reminds me of the crown of thorns. Jamie and Trent both said, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too, and stuff. So 3 people having the same silent connection over 3 different braided flowers representing the Holy Trinity and the crown of thorns and stuff. They do have a certain faith through what I've discovered. They have a faith in Christ too, because this was the first time that they had offered a gift like that and stuff. This was the second gift they had given me to Mother Mary. Wow. So I'm going to show you something too here. But Mother Mary being Christ's mother. Let me show you how they gifted it to me. And I'll show the camera too. 30 seconds.
It's all right. We have edited.
Alrighty. That's how they gifted it.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's art.
So they put, but that's the original. So they put a glyph over the top of it too. The X is actually a Hebrew word. Let's see, will it pick it up? Good. So the X is actually a Hebrew symbol. And then that's, forget what I got. But the X means exchange and ownership. It means to give and stuff. So there is also a Hebrew connection too. And they've used, I think, 5 or 6 different Hebrew words through the glyphs that they've left us on the table. So you have the spiritual connection that we've already made that changed my father-in-law from a skeptic to a believer and stuff. You have the Hebrew literature that they've given. And then this is where it gets really wild, because this was my most recent engagement, I guess, and stuff. I was invited by the Shoop Troop, Barbara Shoop's group, down to the Blue Mountains with Tom Cantrell too. And I wasn't just told that it's a possibility. I was promised that going down there I was going to see and stuff. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's go and stuff. I'm getting all pumped up and everything. And I was out on my porch and I'm reading my Bible and everything. And it was like, I don't know if have you ever experienced the Holy Spirit come on you and speak to you?
I'm not particularly religious myself.
Okay. Well, so it's been described to me before, but this was like the first time that it ever happened to me, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm reading through my Bible, and it's like this voice just came up from within and everything, and it was like you need to give your testimony on the eastern slope. And I'm like, what does that mean? And I'm like, what? Like, give my testimony on the eastern slope. What does that mean? Okay. And then it was almost like I got that mind speak again. And it was like showing me something that had happened to me earlier this summer, where I had been apparently zapped, is what they call it. And being zapped is whenever you get hit so heavily with low frequency sound or what do they call that?
Like subsonic frequency.
Yeah, that like emittance that they're able to project out that you can't actually hear and stuff. It's like very low decibel, but very powerful at the same time. And they hit people with this, and it just makes them sick all of a sudden.
Yeah, like an extremely low frequency.
Yeah, so
Alpha wave.
And they can pick you out of a group too. I was sitting in the center of a group and everything. We were camping, and I went through this kind of weird dream where I fell asleep in my chair, and it was like I was downstream of the creek looking up into camp, and this is nighttime, and I'm looking up at everybody. And then I was up on the mountainside looking down into camp, and I'm looking around trees, looking at people. And then I was upstream doing the same thing. And then all of a sudden I shoot back down here, and I'm standing right next to one of them and everything. But he's like looking at me like this, like, what the hell are you doing here? You know? And I was just like, whoa. And I just woke up all of a sudden, and my brother and my wife were calling for me. I was sitting right in front of him and everything. They're like calling for me, like, where'd you go? I'm like, what are you talking about? I've been sitting here this whole time and stuff. And everybody just starts like looking at each other, like, you know, and I'm just like, what? And DJ was like, dude, you literally like vanished right there. Like you weren't there at all. Like that was weird. And I'm like, hot. And all of a sudden, everything just starts spinning, and I'm like, oh God, okay, good night. I'm going to bed and stuff. And I get up and I start walking to the camp, and I collapse right in front of my door, and I just profusely vomiting and stuff. And I'm like, the hell is this? All of a sudden, I didn't drink anything. I don't drink. I haven't in like 8 years now and stuff. I mean, I didn't have anything that would do that, you know? And all of a sudden, I'm just like horribly sick. Well, the next morning I wake up and I was just fine. Now, that event slashed into my head when this mind speak came about me. And it said, you were going to understand. And I'm like, understand? Understand that? I don't want to go through that again. Like, no, thank you, and stuff. And then it was like, you are going to meet the elders. And I'm like, okay. Now, I'm not the person who's always about the mind speak and stuff like that. Like, my whole role in Legacy Discoveries has always been about staying strictly like scientific, flesh and blood, the liaison between us and the skeptics and stuff, and getting them to understand, certain things are a little weirder over here, But I can't hold my tongue that beyond paranormal things have happened to me, and it's got me completely changing my view entirely on everything about them. And this is why, is because the spirit instructed me to go and give my testimony on the eastern slope. And then this other voice was telling me that I'm going to meet the elders and I'm going to understand basically what happened to me. And this is all before going to the Blue Mountains. And a lot happened there for everybody else that was there too. And they all have these wonderful, incredible things to tell. There was even a healing there. I think a friend named Wayne got into like a car accident or something like that, who was dealing with some terrible problems and stuff, and it completely taken care of now, and he's walking perfectly normal now. And so we pack up our bags and we head out to the Blue Mountains and stuff. And we had stopped like maybe a mile or so below camp and everything, and stepped out of the vehicle, just to take in the sight, because you're up about 6,000 feet, and you're looking over everything. It's just, you can see the whole Palouse of Washington. You can see, as far as a flat earther would believe, we'll say it like that. And it's just an incredible sighting up there and stuff. So, and it was weird because like the second you stepped out of the Jeep, it was like this, like electricity went through your feet and stuff. Like you just started tingling. Maybe it was just the drive or something, but everything was just kind of like vibrating. And I'm like, whoa, this place has a weird feeling to it. This is cool, And we get up to the camp and we go say hi to Barb, and she introduces us to her team and stuff. And then we were going up to go and set up our tent and everything. We only were there saying hi for like maybe 5 minutes or so. And we get up to our spot, comb it out and everything to lay down our tent. And we were on the western slope at that time, because at this campground, there's two peaks to it. There's the eastern slope and there's the western slope. And that hadn't even hit me at the time yet that there was an eastern slope. It's stuff. So I was like, okay. But I was setting up my tent on the western one, and my mom had taken off to the drum circle to go and drum the daylight away and stuff. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking across, like, and it's probably about from us to the apartments away right there, like maybe 80 to 120 yards or so, and there's this, alleyway of trees that I'm looking through, and the sun's piercing straight through that alleyway. And I'm looking, and there's this figure, head and shoulders figure, standing like this and everything, almost like attention and everything, but just not moving at all. And it was super red, like, oh, I guess there's nothing in our background that could really compare, but like dead pine needles and stuff like that. Almost the same color, just a bit redder than that.
Yeah, like from like a freshly dropped almost like the color a disease tree.
Yes. Yes, just that reddish orange. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this figure and I'm like, that's a weird looking tree because up 6,000 feet they grow all kinds of weird. They don't just grow straight up and down. They zigzag, they curl, they twist, they do whatever they're gonna do. And and I'd seen plenty of dead trees on my way up and stuff. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it. I'm like, that's a funny looking tree. And then back to work I went and everything. And my mom come out and she was helping me set up the tent and everything. And I was trapped on the inside. And so she opens it up for me. She's like, here, let's switch out and everything, give your back a rest. I'm like, okay. So I step out and I'm holding the tent open for her and everything. And I look up and I see it's not there anymore. And I just drop the tent on my mom. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, just freaking out. And my mom, she's, flopping like a fish in a net and everything, just like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh shit. So I pick up the door and everything and let her out. And she's like, what's happening? And I was like, I literally I just saw one. Like, there's no other way to explain that. I literally just saw one right there. It was standing right over here. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing that nobody is wearing anything close to red and stuff, and nobody is near as tall as what it was too and stuff. And I'm like, holy crap, we were here for 5 minutes and I had one just standing right over there just watching me set my tent up and everything. Like, wow. And she's like, well, you should go tell Barb. I'm like, 5 minutes in, like, we're the new guys here and stuff. How's that gonna look and everything? Like, I know it's true, but at the same time and stuff, like, we're not here to be like the, hey, look at me type people and stuff like that. Like, we're here seriously, and are they gonna even take us serious 5 minutes in of showing up? I was like, let's just sleep on it and everything, and just leave it as something special for us, and that's where we're gonna stay. And mom's like, okay, I mean, you're the one who saw it, so I mean, that's up to you. And I was like, just keep it to ourselves. Then the next day, we were camping next to a gal named Dorothy, and Dorothy's a good friend now too. And she come up, introduced herself while we were having breakfast, and she was like, do you guys have like a weird feeling hit you yesterday? And I'm like, no. Like, what are you talking about? She was like, right whenever you guys showed up and you were setting up your tent, I had this strange feeling coming off of the wet part of the eastern slope over there. Like something was watching us. And I'm like, what? Oh, really? And she was like, yeah. And like, I don't know. It was just like one of those feelings I just couldn't shake. And I'm sitting there looking at my mom, and mom's like, I'd tell her and stuff. And she's like, did you guys see something? And I was like, yeah. And so I told her what happened and stuff, and she got all excited. And she was like, no, you need to go and talk to Barb about this and go share what happened and stuff, because I'm more than certain her being up here for so many years, she might be able to identify who it is. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we went and gathered up with the rest of the group and told them all what happened and everything. And everybody was super excited and stuff. And they'd set up all these little, like, they call them spirit box and stuff. They look like little cat toys that light up and everything. And they'd set them just all over the place, And so I go walking down there and everything. All of a sudden they started lighting up as I'm walking by them. And I was just like, that's cool. What are those? And they're like, those are spirit balls. They've been going off all morning. And I'm like, what, really? Like, it was going off right as I was walking by it. And I'm like, but, So I like stepped over and I was waving my hand over it. It wouldn't go off. And I'm like, nothing. It wouldn't go off at all. And I'm like, someone walked in here with me then. Like, they literally all went off right as I was walking by them all. But then now I can't set any of them off, not shadow, not waving, you have to pick them up and shake them and stuff in order to get them to go off. So I'm like, And then when I told Barb and the rest of the camp what had happened and stuff and everything, she was like, "Oh yeah, they have that ability of being able to be here without being here." And I'm like, okay, so this goes back to a lot of the stories that I heard growing up as a kid off of the reservation. And basically the gist of that story, I won't tell the whole thing, but they're able to walk, or they're able to keep one foot in the spirit world and one foot in our world at the same time. And basically that's what draws their line right there and stuff, is that if they want to be seen, let's lift this foot. All right, now we're full physical form and everything. Okay, I don't like that person. Let's lift this foot. Now I'm gone. That's basically how simple it is for them.
And as though they're like transitioning dimensions.
Yeah, like they're always center of the portal, basically, if you want to call it that. I don't know anything of portals or anything like that, but they have that capability of just being on one side or the other on will, basically. And then that also brings me back to whenever I was 12 years old and that one just all of a sudden disappeared right in front of us and left physical proof of it too and stuff. I mean, it was like, how does that make sense? Because like according to like quantum physics and stuff like that, if something were to come out of one dimension into this dimension and leave its DNA behind and stuff and then travel back, it should have retrieved all of that DNA too and everything. But then again, I'm not a scientist. That might be 100% wrong too, but the curiosity of their paranormal aspects is the deepest rabbit hole that there is, honestly. And this is where it's important not to get lost. And that's why I always tell everybody, every person that has ever done this to where we've got the chance of doing a one-on-one, sitting down and explaining, take everything I even say with a grain of salt, doing your own research, which is obvious that you were doing and stuff. You were on the proper trail of finding the truth yourself instead of relying off of everybody else's take on it. This is my personal experience. This is how I understand it. This isn't your personal experience, but you can take what I have to say and implement it the same as everybody else. But with how deep this rabbit hole is, it swallows everybody. So you have to be careful of your footing too. Be careful who you're listening to. Be careful of the information that you're getting, and be careful what you're doing too. Like what we were discussing before we began was the idea of the map and stuff, to where that map could be used in a very bad way and stuff, and that instead of helping them, it would be harming them and stuff. So that's where we got to be careful walking.
Yeah, and in my research that I've been doing on this topic, I've seen just so many parallels between it and like UFO research.
Yes.
Which I know Ronnie LeBlanc, who was on Discovery Channel's Expedition Bigfoot, prolific author, awesome guy.
He's a fun guy too. That was a great weekend up at Medellin with him too. So he knows how to keep the crowd alive.
Yeah, and one thing that has always kind of sparked my curiosity on the Sasquatch phenomenon and the UFO phenomenon is that kind of dimensional aspect to it. Growing up around Stevens County, which is where we're at right now, and you hear a lot of stories from people who've just seen things that they can't explain.
And another thing too is like Colville, where we're sitting right now, this is heart of Stevens County, right? This is the main operational city for the county, right? And yet Stevens County is one of the hottest areas for sightings and stuff. I mean, we have so many different research groups in this town alone and stuff. I mean, you have the Pops and Nana, 50 years around the sun. They're a good, excellent team. I can't wait to see more of them too. But they're always researching around here too. We've got the Moneymaker crew and stuff has been up here multiple times. And there are a few hunting group too. That's another thing that we're all trying to sway them in the right direction rather than the idea of removing something from existence to prove that it exists.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing that we do as humans, and we've done it with everything we've discovered. We got to kill it first in order to prove that it exists.
Yeah, which especially with something like Sasquatch that has so much evidence out there for its sentience and, even as you were saying earlier, spiritual aspect, it's soul.
Yeah.
What point do you draw the line and say, hey, we should never harm that soul in any way?
And that's a good question. At what point do we draw the line? Because, everybody you hear nowadays that has to describe them and stuff, it's always them talking about this creature, this monster, this beast, this thing. All of these keywords on a typical sighting, really. And a typical sighting it's typical. You just see one. There he is. Great. Nothing happens though. You just see it. But typical sightings are even taken as horrific sightings to where even just seeing one, it tears that blindfold off of that person. It lets them know everything you know in life needs to be questioned now. Everything you learned is wrong and stuff. There's the proof sitting right in front of you, and it tears down everything that they're built on, and so they don't know how to cope. And so to them, it's terrifying and stuff. They have to learn how to navigate this new world knowing that they've been lied to their whole life,
Ontological shock is real.
It is very real, and that's another thing that my team actually offers too. Is for those of us that have seen them and are dealing with that shock, come and talk to us and stuff. Because, that's all you need to do. You need to talk about it. You need to get it off your shoulders, get that weight out, and everything, and you'll come to learn a side that you never thought was possible, right? Just seeing them walk down the road and everything would be absolutely horrific for the person who has been told their whole life that they've never existed. But to see one walking down the road, as a person who's believed their whole life and known their whole life and everything, oh, there he goes. It's just as simple as seeing a deer or a moose or an elk or a bear or a cougar, anything natural, because he's standing right where he belongs, right where he is where he is best too, and everything, because you don't see them going out and logging. You don't see them going out and mining. You don't see them going out and taking advantage of their fellow man and stuff. You see them just simply being.
Yeah, just existing in balance with nature.
Yes. And it's a reminder to us that this is where we were supposed to be in life. Here's a group of people that have adapted to their surroundings rather than us adapting the surroundings to us and stuff. This park, for instance, everybody wants to sit here and think that this park with the elder trees here and stuff, these ones were never cut down, but everything in between was and stuff, and they still call it a preservation for the owls here and stuff. And that's the whole reason why they left all the big trees, was for the owls here in the park and stuff. And what use? And what use does it, or is it caused to wipe out everything in between here when you could just have trails and left everything completely natural for them and stuff? The more foliage on the ground, the more you're going to see rabbits and squirrels and what's feeding the owls, what you're trying to protect and stuff, not here's just some trees for you. Oh, we're gonna put a music stadium right over here too. Yeah. Oh yeah, I love Colville. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love this town. I was born here. I was raised here, and if God wills it, I'll die here. You know, but it's just a simple connection with the whole bigger picture and stuff that we often take advantage of everything in order to basically control our own box, our own way of life, and back to that box again and stuff. But yeah.
So the next thing that I want to kind of talk with you about, what role do like modern technologies like trail cameras, DNA sequencing, you know, mass spectral analysis of any, you know, specimens that you might find, such as like hair samples or, you know, maybe like a toenail clipping, for example, if you ever come across one of those, what role does science play?
Well, science will play the role that it chooses to play. And that's the problem, because you can come up to a forensics agency and say, I've got all this DNA that I'd like for you to test. They can decline it. Nope, I'm not going to do it, because they've already done that to me. And they've done it to me I've asked the colleges, you know, at Iowa State University, I asked them. I asked the hospitals in the area, Mount Carmel Hospital, St.
Joseph.
St. Joseph's, and what's the big one in Spokane? Sacred Heart. Asked them, they wouldn't do anything about it. And finally, the only forensics agency that was willing to help me at the time was the Federal Forensics Agency. But they had instructed me that if they were going to do this investigation, I would have to turn over everything. I would have to turn over my books. I would have to turn over my phone. I would have to turn over my computer. I would have to turn over all of the photo evidence, all of the physical gifts and stuff, all the feathers and everything. I mean, most of these feathers come from them. I mean, I would have to turn over my little cross, my little Mary that they gave me and stuff. I mean, everything's so personal to me that they're asking me to hand over my life and everything, all of my hard work, so that they can conduct their own investigation and choose whether or not to let me stay involved, or to choose whether or not to even tell me anything that they learned from it. I would basically be offering up everything to the chopping block for nothing. So it does, if you have the money, it does carry a very big amount of prestige behind your group and what you do find, if you have the money. And that's where we come down to, everything comes down to money again. You know, it silently dictates and governs everything. So basically what we do as a group is we collect and store until one day maybe we'll be, you know, approached by that forensics agent who can be like, hey, I want to be part of this. I want to help out and stuff. I don't want to take all of your stuff. I want to help, you know, I want to give you the paperwork that's going to prove that you are, you know what you're talking about, you know. And until then, it's just saving up until we can get, you know, one that is affordable at least. And where are you going to find that?
Yeah, nowhere in this day and age.
Yeah. So
next thing, how does the Bigfoot research community kind of collaborate within itself?
They defer for the most part. Because of the fact that every group has their own idea and opinion of what and who they are and stuff. You have one group that believes them to be extraterrestrial. You have another group such as mine, that believes them to be people. They're people. You have groups that believe them to be ape. You have groups that believe them to be nothing more than an interdimensional monster and stuff here to snatch your children and wives, you know. And so, for the most part, there isn't a very well connected community for the Bigfoot research, but we are starting to see more seeds being planted and more teams showing up that are on the proper track, that is, and stuff. And what I mean by proper is proper by the way that we've researched and we've conducted our research, and that's done in a respectful level, a respectful way, because since they are people, there's so many things that you have to pay attention to about them. One, they're going to be 100% unpredictable. You can sit there and you can predict what your best friend's going to do. You can probably predict the words that are going to come out of his mouth, but 100% of the time, never. And stuff. And do the same thing for your mom and your brothers and your dad and, you know, your own children even, and stuff. You can probably predict about maybe 75% of what they're going to do and stuff, but that remaining 25% is what changes everything and stuff. So basically, if we were able to create this, like, let's say, umbrella academy of Bigfoot researchers and stuff, okay, you guys think that they're aliens, you'll do your research, submit it to the academy. You guys think that they're human, you do your research, submit it to the academy. You think they're monkey, you submit yours to the academy too. And then they all come to a big round table where we can compare notes. The problem is it hasn't happened and stuff. Getting everybody together to understand the same thing is a much bigger task than what most people actually realize. And so therefore we reach out through social media platforms and stuff in order to gain more connectivity, get a louder voice, I guess, and everything, and getting people to recognize the way that we think. Now, this is also going in a contradictory way of the way that I believe and stuff, because there are certain people who believe that we are trying to program our followers into believing a certain way. Rather, we are just showing what we find when we find it and using my brain to connect the dots. And I'm, like I've said before, I'm just a simple guy. So I don't have any big credentials behind me or anything like that, but I get an idea every once in a while that turns out fruitful. And just like that tote and flower and stuff, I was able to make some history right there, how small it might ever be. But to me, that was something grand and a step forward in the proper direction and stuff, because it not only provided the most detailed casting that I have ever seen in my life, but it also proved to me that these people will work with you. These people do show humility, show care, show kindness and stuff, even jokes. Sometimes they played pranks on us before too. And like you said before, where do you draw the line? Like, do you draw the line at them being a hairy person? Do you draw the line at them being a stinky person? Do you draw the line at them being a big person? Because those are the three differences that we have and stuff. At what point do we draw the line and call them these terrible names rather than what they've been called for millennia before Columbus landed? Shiatonka, Elder Brother, Saskets, hairy people. I mean, once you talk to the tribes, everybody has their own name for them, and it's usually some sort of relative or people. And they've been people the whole time. It's just trying to get everybody to see past the programming and stuff that you see on social media and on the program networks of, you know, your TV and stuff like that. TV, vision and stuff. What's in the vision? Channels. You're channeling visions And what are their channels called? Paid programming. They're paid to program you a certain way. I mean, trying to get people to see that is sometimes like pulling teeth. And that's why it's like we are more of a team that welcomes in the people who have even the slightest bit of curiosity. You can go up to me and be like, I don't believe in any of that. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. You have your path through life. My path through life has always been mysterious, has always been what's around the next corner. What's this new discovery and everything? That's my path through life. Some people's paths through life are going to college and becoming president one day. Other people's paths through life are finding Bigfoot, you know? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the next decade, what would you say a major breakthrough that you're hoping to see would be in the research field sharing Bigfoot?
I would like to see them be labeled as they are and stuff. More and more people are waking up to it and calling them the forest people because they're the forest people. And I would like to see that grow. And I would like to see a bit more outreach from my team reaching to more states to where we can actually have solid ground, solid information coming in that we can compare and bring to the Idaho State Court, to the Supreme Court, that is, to finally identify them as they are and label them as the last free roaming or nomadic tribe of the Pacific Northwest and stuff, because not only would that be putting them on an endangered list and stuff, but it would classify them above the endangered list. It would classify them as people, not as animals. Washington here, it's illegal to hunt, it's illegal to harass them and stuff. So it's actually technically, if you go out looking for Bigfoot, you're technically breaking the law here and stuff because it's considered harassment. They don't want to be bothered and stuff. So I would like to see it on a much greater level to where Idaho recognizes them at even if it's just Idaho. The fact that Idaho and Washington are safe havens and British Columbia too, because British Columbia has it written in their laws too, not to hunt or harass either. This is a grand amount of area for them to remain protected and stuff, but I would like to see that grow. I would like to see that expand more, and I would like to see more people learn from their example too and stuff by getting them to be classified as a people, as an endangered people and stuff. It would also give us the ability to basically well, I mean, we would learn from each other. We would learn from each other and stuff. There's so many things that they could teach us and everything. I mean, they've been living off the land, longer than we've ever done and stuff. I mean, can you imagine having a Sasquatch as a professor coming in and teaching agriculture?
Yeah, that would be incredible.
I mean, think of the possibilities and stuff, but at the same time, talking like that would also be implementing them into society too, which was probably more hurtful than helpful to that too. But I mean, think of like a perfect world, for instance. Like, what would happen if you had one of them as like your construction lead or a forensics agent or, police officer? Good Lord. There's no running away. So, I mean, as much as we all want to work together, as a final note for this question, as much as all of the groups want to work together, we all need to sit down and do the legitimate comparisons and stuff, have legitimate meetings and stuff, and take this much more serious than just your standard YouTube page or, like going out and doing your nighttime research and stuff like that. We need to put pen to paper and make it happen rather than sitting around talking about it, and that's 90% of the time what everybody's doing and stuff. And I'm not saying I'm any different there either. It's just trying to make the next step, trying to get everybody to go, okay, this is the direction that we all need to go. Let's all work together this way and stuff. But nobody likes to be told what to do either. So, I mean, I would like in the next 10 years to see them be called what they are, but also to see the wholesome of the research industry be unified under one lid, basically, and that one lid being just as diverse as they are today. Free to explore whatever option. This is what I do with my team. You are 100% free to explore whatever you want to research. Just before you put anything, any pen to paper and provide factual or evidence, it needs to be backed up twice over in order for it to be considered fact. The same as in court. It takes 3 people in court to state an opinion as a fact. So I feel the same should be done with evidence and stuff. Here's a footprint. Okay. Do you have more physical evidence that provides that? Well, here's a hair sample. Here's a skin sample too. All right. Verified right there. And stuff, so long as they all connect, right? They all have to be testing the same data or whatever, But that's what I would like to see. And do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But it is what I would like to see.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful vision for the future, and I really hope it comes to pass. So there's a couple of questions that I always like to finish off with the first time I ever have a guest on. Question number 1, what is your favorite food or meal?
Okay. Oh man, I haven't eaten breakfast yet. Holy crap. Well, I've always said breakfast is the most important meal of the day, so probably my wife's French toast. Honest to God.
Good answer.
She does it with
Watching, he did good.
She does like a nutmeg, cinnamon, and she adds all kinds of spices in there, and I never even knew you could do that.
Oh,
I'm like, whoa.
and then the last question is, what is your guilty pleasure dessert?
Oh. This thing. A vape.
That's all right. We've all got our crutches.
Yeah.
But
that's probably my most guilty pleasure right there is my tobacco.
That's all right. But Willey, I just want to say thank you for meeting me down here. It's a pleasure to talk with you, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Oh, sure. Thank you for having me, and thank you for this trip down memory lane. It's good to be back in Colville, man.
Hey, I'm very glad we could meet here. Thank you very much, Willey.
Thank you. October 28th at 4:15 p.m. My wife and I just got back from Colville, and I did a podcast up there with Ray Hardy, and so we've got ourselves a new glyph. And then I noticed the X was taken off of the lid right here, and so I opened this up. Now that's my footprint from like 2 months ago. This is all new.
And the house glyph is empty.
The house glyph is empty?
It's empty.
So it must have happened while you guys were at the baseball game then. There's hair in here too. There's a hair. There's a hair. Very cool. I got itty bitty handprints too. Like little handprints.
So I wonder if it was the kid.
It's got to be the kids. The handprints don't look near as big as what Braid's were. This is just too cool.
The kids are letting us know that they're still around.
Yeah, kids are back.
Oh yeah, that is a handprint.
yeah.
Inside a
Yeah, they're.
footprint.
I honestly don't know. Honestly, if that is the footprint and then handprints, but you can see they got a hair right there. There's a hair right there too. It's orange too, so that's got to be a
Dahlia.
yeah. So
And I got mine speak from Dahlia last week.
you did? What'd she say?
Remember Dahlia, squirrels and baby? Ha! Dahlia likes to play too.
Oh.
Because we thought it was squirrels and the baby messing with the...
I honestly kind of gave up on the box this year because they
Yeah.
haven't messed with it at all. This is the first time they've messed with it at all this year.
That is crazy.
Too cool. Look at though, they uprooted the flower too. So if we want to save it, we can
Oh,
replant
yeah.
it too.
Oh, and look, there's like little
Yeah,
fingerprints this way too.
we're not gonna cast anything.
Yeah.
So there's another hair right there too. I will come back and collect the hairs, and
Black hair.
we'll try and preserve the flower and stuff. So very cool. Did they take anything? I honestly don't know if they took anything either. It's been so long because they just haven't been around. So too cool. Sweet visit. All right, I'm gonna stop this video and then I'm gonna make a quick short. So God bless and stay squatchy.